All right, so are you ready to dive deep? Today we are tackling one tricky Spanish verb.
Oh, yeah.
It's soler.
SOLER.
And we are going to use Jaime Lara's fun Spanish lesson as our guide for this.
Awesome.
And by the end of this deep dive,
You got it.
you will not only be able to conjugate soler, but you will really get why it is special and how it's different from English.
Yeah, and how it's kind of a reflection of like Spanish thought and how it approaches different concepts.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into it.
Yeah.
What does soler even mean? I know it's got something to do with habits.
Yeah, so soler, it means to be in the habit of or to tend to something.
Okay.
So if you say, yo suelo beber café por la mañana,
Okay.
that means I'm in the habit of drinking coffee in the morning.
So it's not just like doing something often. It's like it's an established routine.
It's an established routine. Yeah, like you do it regularly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling there's more to it than just that.
Yes.
Always more.
Is there. Always more to Spanish verbs. So one of the things that's really interesting about soler is that it's what we call a time-bound verb.
Ooh, time-bound.
Time-bound.
What does that even mean?
So that means it only exists in the present and the imperfect past.
Wait, so no future?
No
Like
future.
no conditional, no conditional. So you're saying Spanish speakers can't talk about future habits with this verb?
They can talk about future habits, but they don't use soler to talk about future habits.
Oh, that is
Yeah.
so interesting. Okay, I'm intrigued. I need to know more.
Yeah,
Let's get into it.
let's do it.
How do we actually use it
Okay.
in the present tense?
So let's imagine you're talking about your weekly soccer game.
Okay.
So you might say, yo suelo jugar al fútbol los lunes,
Mm-hmm.
which means I usually play soccer on Mondays.
Okay, so yo suelo,
Yo suelo.
I usually,
And
and then jugar al fútbol,
to play soccer.
to play soccer. But what's interesting is
Yeah.
soler is always followed by another verb in the infinitive.
Always followed by an infinitive.
Just
Exactly. And that's kind of a structural difference between Spanish and English.
Okay.
You know, in English we would just say I usually play,
Right.
but in Spanish they have a dedicated verb just for habits.
Wow. So it's like soler sets the stage.
Totally.
It's like we're about to talk about a habit.
We're talking about a habit.
Get ready.
Yeah,
And then the infinitive tells you what the habit is.
exactly.
Okay.
And you can see how it changes depending on who's doing the action.
Okay.
So, for example, if we're talking about a group of people,
Yeah.
we would say, ellos suelen ir al parque los domingos.
Okay.
They usually go to the park on Sundays.
Okay.
So now we have solen,
Yeah.
which means they usually...
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So it's like every conjugation
It's a little sign
of soler is a little signpost that's pointing to like
a habitual
a
action.
habitual action.
Oh.
Totally.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it makes me realize that English is so much less explicit
Yeah.
about these things.
Exactly.
We just throw in a usually. or
Usually and call it a day.
call it a day. And that's actually a really great observation. And it highlights how learning another language can really make you more aware of the subtle ways that your own language operates.
Yes, I am already noticing that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're starting to see how soler is more than just a vocab word.
Yes.
It's like a window into a different way
Totally.
of thinking about
Yeah.
habits.
Yes.
But before we dive into the past tense, let's go back to this time-bound thing for a sec.
Okay.
If soler can't be used in the future tense, how do Spanish speakers talk about
Yeah.
habits that they plan to have in the future?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And the answer is that there are other ways
Okay.
to express future habits in Spanish.
Okay.
So you might use a phrase like, normalmente iré a la playa, which means normally I will go to the beach.
Or, a partir de ahora, voy a correr todos los días, which means from now on, I'm going to run every day.
So it's not that they don't think about future habits. It's just they
Right.
have different tools to express those ideas.
Different tools, for
Yeah.
sure. And the fact that they have a dedicated verb for established habits like sole suggests that the distinction between present and future habits might be even more important in Spanish than it is in English.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
This is getting good. This is
Nice
like
play.
uncovering a hidden
Right.
layer of meaning in the language.
Yeah.
But I'm realizing that we have only scratched the surface of sole.
Yes.
I'm ready to go back in time.
Okay.
See how it works in the imperfect past? What do you say?
Let's do it.
Mhm.
Yeah, the imperfect past is really where sole shines. It's like taking a trip down memory lane.
Oh, I love a good nostalgia trip.
Right.
So how does sole change when we're talking about things we used to do?
So remember how in the present tense we have Yo suelo for I usually.
Yeah.
And the imperfect past it becomes yo solía.
Okay.
I used to.
Okay.
So, for example, if you wanted to say I used to eat pizza every Friday, you would say yo solía comer pizza todos los viernes.
Yo solía.
Yo solía.
That's so cool. It just rolls right off the tongue.
It does.
But what is the difference between saying yo solía comer pizza
Yeah.
and just yo comí pizza?
Yeah.
Like, they both seem to be talking about the past.
Right. That's a great question. And it really gets to the heart of what makes sole special. When you use solía in the imperfect past, you're not just saying that you did something.
Yeah.
Once you're emphasizing that it was regular occurrence,
Okay.
a habit that stretched over a period of time.
Oh, so yo salía a comer pizza is
Yeah.
like, I'm a pizza enthusiast.
Yeah.
I'm eating it every week.
Every week.
But yo comí pizza could just
Yeah.
be like one time I grabbed a slice.
One time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it gives us that sense of frequency and duration.
Yeah.
And it highlights that it was really ingrained in your routine.
Yeah. So it's like SOLER in the imperfect past is like a time machine that not only takes us to the past,
Yeah.
but also shows us like the patterns and rhythms of our
Exactly.
former lives.
Yes, I love that. It's like it adds a layer of meaning that we don't really capture in English with used to.
I know. And it makes me wonder if this difference in how Spanish and English express habitual actions might influence how speakers of each language perceive their own habits. Like, do you think Spanish speakers might be more attuned to the enduring nature of their routines because they have a dedicated verb to express it?
That's a really interesting question. I mean, it is possible, right? It's like the language itself is encouraging them to think about their habits in a more nuanced way.
Yeah. And maybe that's why SOLER can exist in the future tense. It's meant to capture those habits that have already become ingrained.
Right.
Not those that we like hope to develop.
But
or
totally.
It's
It's about those habits that have solidified.
Yes.
That become part of you.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
It makes me think of SOLER as a verb that like celebrates the power of habit. Acknowledging how these repeated actions can really shape our experiences and even our identities.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It's true. SOLER is more than just a verb. It's this window into a different way of thinking about the world and how we interact with it.
This is really blowing my mind.
Yeah.
We started with this simple Spanish verb, and now we're talking about the psychology of language and culture.
It happens. It's the beauty of language learning. You never know where it's going to take you.
I know, right? And I think we have only just begun to explore the depths of SOLER.
Yeah.
We've got the present tense, we've got the imperfect past, we've explored the conjugations and the structure and like philosophical implications. What else is there to know about SOLER? What other kind of scenarios can we use it in?
Yeah. So imagine you're chatting with a friend about your childhood.
Oh, yeah.
You know, reminiscing about the good old days.
Yeah.
And you might say something like, solíamos jugar al escondite en el parque todas las tardes. Which means we used to play hide and seek in the park every afternoon.
Oh, solíamos jugar.
Solíamos jugar.
We used to play. That just takes me right back to childhood.
Totally.
And notice how it's that same sentence structure.
Yeah.
Sole plus an infinitive.
Exactly.
And you can use it for any kind of past habit, from like your morning routine to your weekend activities.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm feeling like a SOLER pro.
Yeah.
But you know what? I have a confession to make.
Okay. What's that?
When you said earlier that sole doesn't exist in the future tense,
Yeah.
I was a little skeptical. I was like, really? Come on.
Yeah.
There's got to be times when the Spanish speakers want to talk about habits they plan to have in the future.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as we mentioned before, there are ways to express future habits in Spanish.
Okay.
But you got to, sole is not the tool for that job.
So it really does have a specific role in the language.
Yeah.
It's not like this general purpose habit verb. Boy.
It's specifically for those habits
that
are already like woven into our life.
already established. Exactly.
Okay.
And I think by understanding the limitations of SOLER, we actually gain a deeper appreciation for its power.
I like that.
You know?
Yeah.
Because it allows us to highlight that enduring nature of our routines.
Yes.
The actions that have shaped our past and continue to influence who we are today.
Wow. This is making me rethink how I view my own habits. It's like SOLER is this reminder that our habits are more than just these fleeting actions. They're these threads that connect our past, present, and future selves.
That is beautiful. I love that. And I think you've hit the nail on the head. SOLER gives us a new lens through which to view our lives. It encourages us to appreciate the power of habit and how it shapes who we are.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive.
I know, right?
We went from conjugations to cultural insights
Yeah.
to existential reflections,
It happens.
all thanks to SOLER.
All thanks to SOLER.
So where do we go from here? Well, I think it's really amazing how we were able to peel back the layers of this one little verb and uncover a whole world of linguistic and cultural insights.
Yeah, and I think that is what makes SOLER so fascinating. It's like a gateway to understanding how language can reflect the way we think and the way we experience the world.
Right, and it's not just about memorizing conjugations. It's about understanding a whole different perspective.
Totally. And I think one of the big takeaways from this deep dive is that SOLER, it's not just about grammar, it's about perspective. It highlights how Spanish speakers really conceptualize habits as a fundamental part of their lives, something that shapes their identity and their understanding of time.
Yeah, and I think that perspective can be really valuable even for people who don't speak Spanish. It encourages us to think about our own habits and see them not just as routines, but as expressions of who we are.
I love that. It's like giving ourselves permission to really celebrate those habits.
Totally. To celebrate the power of habit and recognize that those small actions that we repeat every day, they can have a huge impact on our lives.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into SOLER, what is the one thing you hope our listeners will take away?
I hope they'll walk away with a new appreciation for the complexity of language
Yeah.
and how it shapes our view of the world. And maybe they'll even start noticing those little SOLER moments in their own lives,
Yeah.
those small habits and routines that really make them who they are.
I love that. It's a great reminder that those habits,
Yeah.
they're a part of us.
They're a part of us. They're not just things we do.
Well, this deep dive has been incredible. I feel like I learned so much about Spanish,
Me too.
about language,
Yeah.
about myself.
Yeah.
Thanks for being such an awesome guide through this.
It was my pleasure.
And to all of our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Adios.
Adios!